Good morning. I'm Jim Czek with Kelowna Now, and you can see in the background the snow is coming down in the beautiful city of Kelowna. And on the line with me, Ian Burns, our managing editor, all the way from Ottawa. Are you getting snow right now too?
No, not at all. We haven't had any this year.
Well, there you go. We're getting it down here, so it's not sticking yet, but it's coming down pretty good. You can see on the background there. Um, wow, in the news. Montreal on fire. Police say they expect more arrests stemming from the Friday anti-NATO protest. Um, Terrible stuff going on.
Yeah, very, very bleak. But there is a kind of anti-NATO sentiment, isn't there? More so in Quebec, I would say, than the rest of Canada.
Yeah, we'll get to where our fearless prime minister was during that event. We'll talk about that later, though. It seems Elon Musk has helped the United States with their democracy and has moved on to Britain. He's in your homeland there. He's working on promoting a petition calling for an election, and they just had an election.
Yeah, on the 4th of July, on American Independence Day, and the Labour Party won. Labour Party is kind of like the NDP, I guess, crossed with the Liberals. They won like a really huge, gigantic majority, despite not really winning that many votes. It's worth having a look at it actually. I think they won something like 32% of the votes, but they got something like over 60% of the MPs. But they haven't, you'd think when you win an election like that, very tight, you'd think that you would kind of tread lightly, but they haven't. They've made some really big moves, and a lot of people aren't happy. And so now more than 2 million people have signed this petition. It doesn't actually mean anything. I mean, it is almost completely meaningless, but it's quite interesting that so many people are upset, one of whom is Elon.
How many people in England, in the UK, I should say?
The truth is that nobody knows, but around about 68, 69 million. But it's estimated, depending on who you ask, that it's a few million higher than that in reality.
And then more on this blue sky stuff. We're seeing a lot of Democrats and now it looks like the liberals, they seem to want to copy always, saying they're moving to blue sky because it's the X is full of hate against them. And um, I took a look at some of the MP's site, blue sky posts, and they have like 300 followers and stuff like that. So um, not sure how this is all going to play out. But we saw the same thing when X was more left leaning and the conservatives were leaving to a thing called Parlor, and that never really worked out either.
Well, that was nixed from outside forces anyway, wasn't it? It was
Yeah.
destroyed because it was deemed to be dangerous or something like that.
Uh, so hey, well, it'll be interesting to see how this blue sky works out. I mean, I took a look at not a lot of stuff going on there, blue sky there.
Yeah, they have a pretty sort of stringent moderation policy as well, and much like Twitter in the dark days of the pandemic when they would pretty much delete anything that went against their strange worldview. That's very similar with Blue Sky, and I think it was the Babylon Bee or whatever that satirical, or the
Right.
Onion, one of those ones, one of those satirical websites. Just try to make a few jokes, I think, on that, and just like every single one of their posts was deleted or hidden or something like that.
Hmm.
So I think it's more like it's like the old-fashioned moderation technique that seems to have passed away elsewhere.
Danielle Smith, the Alberta Premier, in the news again. Serious about a rail link between Calgary and Edmonton into the Rockies. I mean, that's something you and I have talked about for a while. She said it's a key to a $25 billion tourism economy to get that rail. I mean, they have nice flat ground. They have, they could probably put rail in better than anybody and easier, right? Faster.
I mean, it's an absolute no-brainer, Edmonton, Calgary, anyway, to have a high-speed rail there. And I think, talking about Elon Musk, I feel like he's mentioned that, hasn't he, with that as a potential Hyperloop
I'm
location.
going to say that the Calgary Edmonton Rail Trail has a higher chance of success and providing benefit than the Gord Lovegrove Love Train here in the Okanagan Valley.
Yeah, but it's funny. I mean, you mentioned that it's flat, which is completely true, completely true, and there's a lot of room as well. That's also true between sort of Montreal and Toronto, where more than 50% of the Canadian population lives, and that's another like possibility, isn't it? But these projects seem to me to just be complete no-brainers, but and yet here we are. They haven't happened.
Yeah.
But the Edmonton Calgary one, yeah, I mean that has to be the easiest one in the whole of Canada to do.
I think that would definitely alleviate even some of the housing price pressures in Calgary because, you know, if you can get off in Red Deer or, you know, like there's a bunch of cities in between Calgary and Edmonton. And if you had stops along the way, it would make people could diversify a little bit more because Edmonton's a, you know, fairly reasonably priced city compared to the rest of Canada.
Yeah, well, she said, I believe, numerous times, she said that she wants Red Deer to grow. I think she wants it to have like 1 million people or something like that. So that's certainly on Danielle Smith's agenda.
Yeah, well, maybe we're at Red Deer one day. We'll run into Cologne. Run into Calgary or Edmonton. It's a beautiful little town too, in the middle of those two cities.
Yeah, and it totally makes sense to get the trains to go into, I mean, I don't know how close they could get to Banff or Jasper or whatever, but that would make perfect sense as well, wouldn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Um, and then more in the news for Alberta, there was a story on Fox News uh, saying that Trump reportedly wants to revive the Keystone XL pipeline, and there's some real momentum there. And also, the Globe and Mail reported that um, Donald Trump is looking to revive that project. So lots of interest. That would be great for the oil and gas industry in Alberta to get another place to sell their oil and gas.
Yeah, and well, it's a win-win, isn't it? Because then Trump gets to say that he brought gas prices down or whatever else he wants to
Yeah.
advertise. It would bring the cost of living down in the US, but of course it would upset certain people who are obsessed about emissions and things like that from Canada. Yeah, so that would be the controversy.
Well, if the Conservatives take government and then Stephen Gibault's out of a job, they could probably, you know, set up a protest thing there somewhere along the Keystone Pipeline.
Yep, that you should probably we should probably write that story now in anticipation because it almost certainly will occur. If not Gilboa himself, then there will be some kind of encampment to try and stop it.
Yeah. Interesting. This GST thing not going away. The next one there, Rommel. Here we have Anita Anand there with Rosie Barton talking about. We're going to play a little clip from this exchange here.
In terms of the tax holiday that we're providing to Canadians, this is a measure that is going to ease the pocketbooks of Canadians right across the country going into a very busy season, and it will be in place for 2 months. In addition, we are putting on the table supports for workers. 18 million workers are going to benefit with cash back. In terms of
Yeah, and then there was a response there actually on CBC to Andrew Cohen from the Globe and Mail. If you could play that one. We'll get that for you in a second. That's okay. We'll wait.
Supports for workers.
Just got to pull that image
2
off.
million workers are going to benefit with cash back. In terms of the
You got two of them playing on top of each other.
holiday that we're providing to Canadians, this
You know, if you're going to go out,
Start that one over. A couple little glitches here, but it's worth hearing.
Of this move, so I'm going to start with you, if that's okay. What do you make of both the policy and the politics?
It's embarrassing. You know, if you're going to go out with some dignity and some integrity rather than flinging billions of dollars at the public in hopes that they'll forget why they hate you. This is such bad policy on so many levels. We're going to borrow $6 billion to throw ourselves a party so that people can move purchases forward and backwards so they can take advantage of this. The biggest recipients, for example, if you dine out at restaurants, the more expensive the meal, the bigger the break you'll get. Well, who is that going to benefit? Is that going to benefit the poorest among us? Is that going to benefit the the richest among us. We're going to give a tax break to people on alcohol sales. That's great public policy. We're going to give a tax break on snack food at a time of rampant.
You can probably stop it there. Again, with that GST, Justin Trudeau's tweet said, we're taking the GST off groceries. Again, misleading because there's no GST on groceries. There is on snack foods. And I took a look there and I actually posted on my LinkedIn. You like cheese balls. You can buy a great big bucket of cheese balls for like $7.47 now, but just think on December 14th, you can get that GST free.
Not to mention like giant pallets of booze. Like probably save quite a lot of tax on that.
Do you know what I mean? Like you can't afford raspberries, blueberries. There's scurvy that's now reared its ugly head in Canada, which is unbelievable because people can't afford proper fruits and vegetables. But they've lowered the price not on good food, but on cheese balls.
Yeah. And I mean, I really feel like the alcohol side is quite big, as that chap there said. Like, what kind of public policy is this? I mean, everywhere in the world pretty much is trying to get their citizens to stop drinking alcohol as much because more and more studies show how dangerous it is, even in young people. And then this policy comes out, and that'll be one of them, especially over Christmas. That's going to be one of the main consequences, is that people will imbibe a little bit more.
One of the things I saw on X, and a lot of it, was people saying the $250 check is going straight to the Conservatives. They say, I'll take my $250 and put it to work to get rid of the Liberals.
It's an interesting idea. I don't know how many people will be willing to give money to politicians, but
well, I mean, Justin Trudeau, definitely his government is more of a distribution kind of government, right? Where they tax the ones that work really hard and disincentivize people and don't really invest in building capacity in that. And then they work on distribution, right? Distributing the money of the hardworking people to the rest of the people. Whereas, if you have a government that incentivizes where you can make the pie bigger, instead Justin Trudeau makes the pie smaller and then just distributes the pie so people get a smaller and smaller piece of pie.
it certainly seems to have become a lot more normal that like throwing money around like that. Obviously, we've seen it in BC, and it also happens in Ontario, which is supposedly led by somebody that calls himself a conservative, but he's doled out quite a lot of money. Doug Ford. It seems to, I mean, it's not a good sign, is it? If you look at history, but it seems to be becoming normalized. This idea that the government will. Or it's not even presented as the government, is it? It's presented as like an individual. So it's like Doug Ford or Justin Trudeau will give you this $200 or something like that. It's a very odd development.
And while Montreal burned, Taylor Swift was performing in Toronto and Justin Trudeau was there dancing. There's lots of video of him on the internet and exchanging bracelets, friendship bracelets with a bunch of 14-year-olds. Well, 14 to whatever. But here's what that crowd looks like, and there's all the friendship bracelets. And he had a whole handful of bracelets there as he was dancing up a storm with all these young girls exchanging bracelets.
Maybe he's going to try and get a bill through Parliament to give them the vote.
It's probably the only people left that, because, obviously he's a figurehead of Canada. And then I saw one of the videos, young girls like, not sure why he's here, but, here's a picture of him in the background. And yeah, a lot of young girls.
I feel in defense of Justin there, I feel like a lot of politicians in the West have kind of just dropped the name Taylor Swift whenever they can, because politicians desperately try to associate themselves with popular figures, don't they, in any way they can. And I think they've tried to do it with Taylor Swift, but it's not a good look for a grown man to be at a concert for, teenage girls.
There was a lot of headlines out there, including some really interesting headlines like Swift reaction to Trudeau at concert. And yeah.
It's not necessarily a great look.
And then, those questions, and this is the question that we're seeing more and more. The Conservatives say they're going to defund the CBC. And I've heard personally from reporters saying that they're scared they're going to lose their job. And I guess the question is, will Canadians fight to save the CBC? Have they been fighting? I guess the question is, have they been fighting for Canadians? A lot of people say that they support the Liberal government.
Yeah. Well, whether or not they support the Liberal government, a capital L Liberal, they certainly have a small L liberal worldview. I would say quite a niche liberal view as well, quite an unusual one that you find among people in academia, for example. I don't think they represent the massive Canadian the Canadian population. I don't think anybody would argue that.
They've been around for 88 years. They've been part of, I grew up with them, because we weren't very well off. And the only station we got with rabbit ears was CBC. And I watched all the Beachcomber shows and all the stuff and I grew up with CBC. And it's changed so much, right? So, some of the things where they become more opinionated in their news or whatever, like, especially during that trucker rally where they put out narratives about Russian influence and Russian money and all that stuff, which all of it turned out to be false.
Yeah. No,
It
they've
really, I
been
think, really hurt them in that way.
yeah, they've been pitiably gullible on a lot of things like that. And also talking about the trucker demonstrations, I believe they were one of the broadcasters, one of the news organizations that focused on the one person that had a swastika flag and kept on talking about that as though that represented the entire demonstration. And just things like that. That is just gullibility, and yeah, and it's unfortunate that they've fallen into those traps, I think.
And if they are Canada's protector of free speech and democracy, they have done very little with Bill C-18 and how it's crushing force on media in general. I mean, they get about close to $1.5 billion a year, but pay little mind to the rest of the media landscape that is dying all around them.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's interesting that question that you pose. Will the Canadian people fight for CBC? I mean, a sort of corollary question there to ask is, will they fight for the rest of the media? And the answer has been no. When we've been stamped on by this meta ban, they haven't. Let's be honest, like there hasn't really been a great outcry, has there, about declining media in Canada? So if that's any indication of what Canadians think of the media, then they're not going to fight for the CBC, I don't think.
Well, CBC has not fought for media in general, though. You know what I mean? Like
No, they haven't.
they've been rather absent in this fight with Meta, and instead of media's job, in my mind, is to hold power accountable, and I don't believe they've done a really good job of holding power accountable.
No, but I imagine it's not gonna benefit them at all. But I imagine they'll do a better job when the Conservatives are in power, and they can look at them as more traditional ideological opponents. But it
As
might
they
be too
should.
late by that point.
As they should, right? As they should, and as they should right now, because there's so much they could be doing. And then brings us to our meme of the day. We're going to do a meme of the day, and there you go. There's your meme of the day, and it's a bunch of dinosaurs with the CBC logo. So
My only objection to that is that they've made them fierce, scary dinosaurs. They should definitely be herbivores for anybody that still watches CBC. They're definitely not predators.
careful now. And then this one here, this is kind of like one of those sensations that's kind of like sweeping around the world, and golfers, NFL players, all think. Here's Charlie Hull, an English golfer from your homeland again. We're gonna play that little clip there. That's Nelly Corda there, and there's Charlie Hull. Will come in the screen in a second. There she is, right there. Charlie Hull.
They know each other pretty well. They got.
There she goes. So Charlie Hull with the Trump dance. Is that more a reflection of people that were scared to have their say and all of a sudden believe that they can be more open about what they support?
I would say so. Definitely, yeah. And I mean, we've seen that not just in terms of people doing the dance, or not just even celebrities, but a lot of people have. It does feel like a kind of a weight has been lifted off a lot of people, and they're trying, and they feel a lot more comfortable expressing themselves now that a majority of Americans or American voters have backed Donald Trump, who 5 minutes ago we were told was the next Hitler.
Yeah, so Charlie Hull has come out and has called Donald Trump brilliant and said that wishes that he would come and run England.
Well, that's I don't know how wise that is to say that, because in England, the hostility to Trump is even more extreme, I would say, than it is in Canada. It's
Oh.
to express even a little bit of favorability towards Donald Trump in England is to be chased around with a pitchfork. So
Well, I
she'll
guess
be in
she's
trouble
ready
for
to go
that, I'm
back to
sure.
get chased around with a pitchfork.
Yeah, maybe she's willing.
She's kind of like the John Daly of of female golf, though, right? That she's smoking darts while she's signing autographs.
All right. I've never heard of her, to be honest. Is she any good?
Yeah, she is. Yeah. Cybertruck continues to invade Canada. In the Santa Claus parade in Montreal, there's about 7 of them towing floats. There you go, Cybertrucks everywhere. It's Elon's world. Yeah, it's Elon. Even Angela Merkel. Angela Merkel was spouting off about Elon Musk and saying that he needs to be stopped, right? Because you don't want these Cybertrucks like taking over all the parades.
Yeah.
And then
They're so distinctive, aren't they? They have to be the most distinctive car on the market right now.
They're the ultimate, what you call a ultimate midlife crisis vehicle. People used to buy Lamborghinis and Ferraris for that, but the Cybertruck draws a bigger crowd than Lamborghinis used to in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure they'll get watered down as more of them get out there, but
it's just fascinates me. The only car I can think of that is similar throughout history is probably like the Mini or something like that, where just everybody knows what it is because it's so unique in terms of its design.
to me it looks like a bad PBS science fiction, low budget science fiction movie. But I've driven a Cybertruck. It's anything but. It is absolutely probably the most interesting vehicles to drive. The power, the response, the steering, like everything in the room and the cabin, and it's you have to drive it before you kind of like poo-poo it because yeah. And then this is the Doge is the big thing. A lot of countries asking for Doge in their country now, and Elon Musk and Vivek set to start cutting things. And here's an interesting exchange here with Face the Nation and Peter
Buttigieg.
yeah, that guy. They spent $7.5 billion. And listen to this. Let's play this.
That taxpayers made back in 2021. Why isn't that happening more quickly?
So the president's goal is to have 500,000 chargers up by the end of this decade. Now, in order to do a charger, it's more than just plunking a small device into the ground. There's utility work, and this is also really a new category of federal investment. But we've been working with each of the 50 states. Every one of them is getting formula dollars to do this work, engaging them in the first handful, again, by 2030, 500,000 chargers. And the very first handful of chargers are now already being physically.
You have to watch your expression. $7.5 billion. And then if you look at what the cost comparison to what a Tesla supercharger is, it's just obscene the amount of money. Where's the money going, I guess is the bigger question, right? But he doesn't break any stride when he's answering there. He just keeps going with his talking point, even though she's like basically like just calling him out there.
Yeah, I mean, how many examples have we seen of that kind of thing? I mean, it seems to particularly be related to the energy transition, as they call it, where, they get this enormous sum of money justified along the lines of, if we don't spend this, the world will explode. And then they proceed to just get these terrible results and spend all the money on some mysterious object. I don't know where it goes.
Well, we know where it goes. Well, in Canada, we had an app that should have been built for like $60,000 to $80,000. It was in the millions of dollars.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like it pervades the world. It really isn't just Canada. It's things like wind turbines and solar farms, everything. It seems that when these subsidies are these like big packages of money, distributed, quite a lot of it goes missing, or not missing, but they just don't seem to get a good a value for money, really.
Well, they seem to always say they don't know where it went, but it doesn't work like that because they wrote the check somewhere. It's, you know what I mean? Like the Liberal government here in Canada has said that several times they're not sure where the money went. Well, you do know where it went. You wrote the check. It's to the person that you wrote the check to, right? There wasn't like it's not like they had a safe full of money and they just shoveled some out the back door and people ran away with it, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe they are doing that. Who knows, right?
Yeah, I mean, why not? Try anything once.
Let's go to the markets. Gold down big time today. Profit taking, big drop in gold today. And then a lot of it is profit taking. You can see in the chart there that there's that drop off from the Trump election, then it kind of fought its way back and then dropping again. So gold treading water here, but still high comparatively, right? That's 6-month chart you're looking at there. Bitcoin, there's always those psychological barriers, and 100,000 will be a big psychological test for Bitcoin. It just seems like that's the way it is. And the same thing goes for the Dow when it fights, like, those round numbers always are the thing. It got really close to 100,000. You can see it like banging on the door there. Now it's kind of like falling off a bit. It could fall back to in the 90,000 range before it continues its ascent. But I do believe with what's going on in the U.S., with Trump coming in January 20th, that Bitcoin likely has a stellar future in front of it. But there's a big gap there. I mean, it jumped up. You look at that election, you look at November 5th there, and you can see the jump and then just the steady climb, right? Again, markets loving, if we look at the next one there, markets loving the Trump win. Markets still going up, and there's a lot of I guess positivity towards deregulation and investment. So in the U.S., it remains to be seen where Canada fits into this thing. I know that Danielle Smith from Alberta is heading to the inauguration to make sure she has a place at the table and fight for Albertans. I doubt if we're going to get the same response from the Liberal government. Here's a really big mess here. Again, another battery maker, Northvolt, filed for bankruptcy in the U.S. Volkswagen alone is going to lose $1.6 billion in this thing. And they've had investment from so many places. This is, again, people saying that they're going to outdo Tesla and a whole bunch of things. And again, it shows that it's not as easy as people think. Northvolt was you can go read about it. Northvolt was tough. You still there, Ian?
Yeah, I'm still here. Yeah.
There you go. And then do we have another graphic there? Yeah. So Wealthsimple is one of the things that we're going to try and do some stuff to help people learn a little bit too. Wealthsimple is a nice little easy app that you can use if you want to start investing. My daughter, talking to her, she's starting to make decisions. Instead of buying that $8 coffee, she's buying $8 worth of a stock. So she's the decision she's making in her mind, because you can buy partial shares with Wealthsimple. There's no trading fees. So if you want to buy $8 worth of Tesla stock, you can. If you want to buy $8 worth of Palantir, you can. Or whatever stock you want to buy, Lululemon, or whatever it is that you want to buy. You can buy partial shares, and then it's just a percentage increase. Because it wasn't too long ago that you would have to pay these huge brokerage fees, and there was like a flat fee, and then there was a percentage on it, and it made it really hard for small investors to invest in the market, because like let's take Tesla as an example. It's trading at $350 US. So what is that in Canadian? Like $8,000? I mean, I joke, but it's around $500 Canadian, and most people, if you were buying a partial share, I mean a full share, a lot of people don't even have $500, but they can buy $8 worth of it. And you can do this with Wealthsimple. And I think you did it too, right? You've since opened a Wealthsimple account.
I have, yeah. But I'm a little bit hesitant to dip my toes, because I feel like it's a bit of a bubble maybe right now, but I'm sure you you have different ideas on that.
Well, I'll just say this to you: the $8 that you spend on a coffee, the $8 you spend on a stock, even if the stock doesn't do anything, the coffee wouldn't have done you anything either.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
it's true.
Do you mean that at least you have a chance with the other one? And then we're going to put a QR code, I mean, a code there too, because you get $25 if you use this code to start your account. We'll put it in the description there so you can use that code to get you $25. That's almost like, that's almost like 2 cups of coffee, $25. I think you can actually get 3 out of that, right? Not if
It's
you
a
give
couple
a
of
tip, though.
cucumbers, I would say.
What's that?
Couple of cucumbers, maybe.
Couple of cucumber, maybe 1 blueberry. But
Yeah.
$25 will get you almost 3 buckets of cheese balls, and they're big buckets, right?
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Cheese balls or stocks.
And
That's
then
going to
just
be the real
you want to
decision.
save up on your cheese ball purchases. You want to wait till December 14th and go there and just like there's probably going to be a mad rush for cheese balls on that day because people are going to be stocking up on cheese balls among other items of I'm not sure what the other items would be.
Booze.
What are you feeding your kids in the form of junk food?
What do I give them that's junky? Not really very much, to be honest. I've trained my son to look at fruit, like even prunes, as being a treat. So he kind of complains that he wants his treat, and it's a prune. So doesn't really get a lot of not a lot of cheese balls coming his way.
No Sugar Crisp, none of those great cereal brands like what are that Kellogg's? They had that thing where if you can't afford food, why not have breakfast for dinner? Basically, Frosted Flakes.
That was funny. No, that was an interview, wasn't it, with the CEO or something?
No, they did some commercials for it too.
Wow, that's hilarious.
Yeah, hilarious if the whole nation wasn't suffering from obesity, right?
Yep, there is a sad element to it for sure.
And that's the thing about this. They say that the Liberals are saying they're helping Canadians with taking the GST off. Why don't they just call it a spade, taking the GST off snack food, not off of groceries, like Justin Trudeau. Like, go read his tweet. He says, we're taking the GST off groceries. That's a lie. It's misleading. I guess it's not a lie. Some groceries, I should say. Snack foods. We've taken the GST off snack foods and beer and wine and cider.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is a funny thing to do, isn't it? Especially, I know we talk about America a lot, but there's a reason for that. I think that's justified. But especially when the Americans have just elected a president who wants somebody like RFK to be in charge of health. I mean, that's going to be, I doubt he would be very happy about that.
Yeah, we should run that policy. We should try to get RFK on the program and ask him if this is a really good policy to put into place by removing the tax off of snack foods.
But they could have theoretically, they could have exempted the sort of like junk food and somehow like sent out even more money or something like that, or like justified it in that way to try and say that no, we're going to try and make sure it's good, healthy food. But Christy Freeland, when they announced it, she was kind of saying, there are a lot of busy parents out there, and sometimes they just have to buy like frozen food or something. That was her justification.
Right. Well, there's a lot more ways they could have helped people. They could remove the GST off of everything if they want, right? So allow people to buy, or just take the carbon tax off so that the price of fruits and vegetables can come down. Allow us to utilize our oil and gas so that we can utilize our energy and then use that to strengthen our Canadian dollar. Those are policies that would actually work.
But it doesn't quite have the personal feeling of a check arriving or some money arriving in your bank account for $250.
I wonder what the cheese ball lobbyist looks like. I wonder if we had a picture of him or her, what this cheese ball lobbyist would look like.
Almost certainly, I would say very lithe and fit and youthful looking, and never eats cheese balls.
He doesn't eat his own poison like a drug dealer. Don't sample your own product.
Well, it's certainly the case that if you think of other controversial companies along those lines, the CEOs don't tend to look like they consume a lot of their products, do they?
Yeah, well, they probably have some inside knowledge there, right?
Yeah,
anyway,
definitely.
Look at that backdrop. Can barely see. Snow's coming down pretty good right now in Kelowna. Looks like it's starting to stick on the roads. You're starting to see that's Highway 97 that you can see in the background there. East and west traffic is flowing, but the roads are white. So that means that snow is sticking to the roadways. So as always, don't be part of that statistic in those first winter crashes where people aren't sure how their brakes are working and all that stuff. And give yourself some extra stopping room, wear good footwear when you're out, all those good things. And we ask that you subscribe to our newsletter that goes out every morning before 7 a.m., 365 days a year. And also follow us on YouTube, subscribe on YouTube, ring the bell, all those things they talk about, right? We're also on X, not on Bluesky. I understand we did buy a did get a Bluesky handle. I'm not sure if we're putting anything on the Bluesky, but we are on X and we are on TikTok in the meantime before they get rid of that. And we have accounts on Facebook and Meta that are being blocked by Meta and the Liberal government. And again, not a lot of outrage from the CBC on independent media losing its voice. Any thoughts, Ian?
Yeah, just it's sad to be reminded of that, isn't it, over and over again? But it's something that people just seem to have got used to. And you see the CRTC now are going after Facebook, as they said they would, as Pascal Santonge told me they would. And they're saying that actually news is still appearing on Facebook, which is true. Anybody that goes on there will see. I mean, it's quite brazen at times. Somebody even copied an entire article that we'd written and all the photographs and took all the photographs and just pasted it into a just a Facebook post.
Yeah.
It was just there, had hundreds of comments. And
there's that account called We Are Canada Proud, and they basically steal everybody's content. I shouldn't say steal, allegedly steal everybody's content, including ours. And it's all over Instagram and Facebook. And they're doing quite well
Indeed.
with it.
And I think
we create the
CRTC
content.
certainly has a point there.
Yeah, we create the content and they reap the benefit of it. And yet here we are being punished by the government and Meta turns a blind eye to them. And we've appealed and we've appealed and appealed and appealed, and it just seems for naught.
Yep, nobody's listening, I think, and nothing seems to be happening.
There you go. And that's the way the cookie crumbles.
Yep. If you're small fry, you just get munched up, don't you?
Anyway, there you go. That's it for today. We'll be back tomorrow with more memes and more interesting discussion with Ian, Burns, and myself. And you've been watching Kelowna Now. Thank you.
We don't just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local,